Okay. Oh, shit. Manage. Go live. All right. Share this. I want to share this. All right, can everybody hear me? Or let's see. Stream settings. How do I post this on here? Participants. So, YouTube. Live. All right. Let me grab this board. All right, can anybody hear me? Let's see. Okay, let's go a little further down. Okay. All right. Well, doesn't look like anybody's here, but I'm still going to start on it. I'm still going to go through with it. So they wanted to know about cooling systems. So I'm going to go over the cooling system and how we did it on this car. So for this, we have our own radiator mounting, and we use, let's see, let's make sure everybody, looks like some people are coming. Where can I? Can you hear me? Hear me? I haven't talked much, but I need to. How do I get this out of here? All right, cool. So everybody, I did a poll, and people wanted to know about the cooling system. So I'm going to go ahead and go over that. So to start with, this is the twin turbo car. We are still using the same cooling system that we do on that we sell on the site. So I'm going to go over how we do the cooling system on the car. So this is the radiator mount. This is the radiator that we use. This is out of a C7 Corvette. I chose this one purely out of randomness at the time, but I've since really liked the radiator. It has a lot of additional good options that you can do. So if you supercharge it, you can use C7 stuff. You can add external coolers on it. So that's kind of why I chose this one, and to keep it anyway. So on this, we have the radiator hoses. Let's see if I can show you. Let's see, it's going to be a little difficult to see. So the radiator hose goes from, well, it's underneath the turbo right here. Then it goes, this is a truck offset water pump. So this water pump is from a 2009 and newer, I think the 2015 Camaro. So it has the truck offset. I don't particularly prefer this, but this radiator setup works with all three belt offsets, whether you use the Corvette Camaro F-body with the middle offset or the 5th gen Camaro water pump. So then as far as the heater hoses, I'll see if I can't get around here. So what I did is this is a 3/4 inch hose that tees off to another 3/4 inch hose that goes to our expansion tank. And then it tees off to a 1/2 inch hose that goes to the heater core, so that you don't have a lot of wiggle room and it slides right on the heater core hose pretty easily. And then the second hose that's underneath here is also a 1/2 inch hose, and that is a 5/8 hose that goes straight into it. And then for the steam line, which I don't currently sell the steam line because pretty much every setup's going to be different, but I have the steam line going from the top of the reservoir down straight to the radiator. So I put a quick connect on my my radiator, and then at the T, which that's a 3/8 to I think an 1/8 inch T, and then it goes underneath the throttle body and it goes to the steam port. So when I want to fill the cooling system up, I'll actually just pull this off and then go ahead and fill the reservoir all the way up, let it bleed all of the air out. And then once all the air's out, I'll go ahead and put it back on and tighten it down before doing a compression test. So I'm going to go ahead and go up on the car so that I can show you how we did it underneath. I only used 2 bolt holes on this one because I did have to lower this one a little bit for the twin turbo car. So it's trying to think of what else. Really, that's it. I really made it pretty basic. So I guess as soon as it goes up, and I'll show you what I did as far as the ability to be able to add additional coolers if you ever need them. So on this car, I actually used, this is the transmission cooler, and I'll show you from the inside of this. It's all very mock-up. This is the oil cooler. The car is not completely done how I want it to do. It's really still in the building phase. Let's see, so as soon as we get this out of the way, and I have been working on the electrical for it. It's taken me, I've been working on it since Monday, and I have completely redone all of it. And it is definitely taken a long time. Have you ever used a stock radiator? So yes, you can use the stock radiator. I don't use the stock radiator anymore because the nipples on the top typically always break off. So you need to replace the radiator anyway. And to be able to put the radiator in a decent spot, I don't really like how you have to put it. And I'll kind of show you once the car gets up what kind of problems that entails. Let's see. So this should be high enough now. All right. So with the stock radiator, some of the problems that you have is really clearance with the balancer. So with the balancer, you know, if you have the truck balancer, see if I can kind of get you to see it. So if you have the truck balancer, you know, this is way far forward. The F body is actually about right here. Let me see if I can get it to where you can see it. So on the F body, it's actually about right here instead of over here. So in order to do that, the radiator has to be moved really far forward. You have to trim a lot of this original core support out to be able to lean the radiator forward to even be able to do that. This is the crash sensor that I have trying to make the new wiring. So, and the radiator hoses are just really in weird positions, I feel like, when it comes to the factory radiator. It's not that you can't do it. JR, I have not used the Integra radiator in a long time. I mean, that still works. It has a very similar mounting design as this, but I don't use that anymore. I didn't like how the upper radiator hose was. That was really what my problem was that I didn't like about it. I mean, it worked, but I just didn't like how it looked. I didn't like how it kind of, and I had to trim a lot of the hose to be able to make it fit. So on this, I had these radiator mounts made. Let's see if I can get close enough to really be able to see it. So this bolts straight to some OEM bolt holes that are already there. And it has two on both sides, and then it comes down and holds the radiator from the bottom. This is the lower radiator hose that goes along, so it goes along there. I have it zip tied right now to this. I need to make a bracket where it'll be able to bolt to the fan shroud. I haven't done that yet. And then it goes up to the upper neck for the other part of the water pump. So this is the other port that I was talking about. So if you use this, you'll be able to also add additional coolers with this line. And what you would do is you'd end up coming off of this, going to a cooler, and then you'd end up going back to one of the heater hoses and teeing off of it. That way you'd be able to increase your cooling capacity using that. And then as far as this, this cooling fan would then be controlled. You could use the Mazda control, or you could also use the LS to control it. On our white nitrous car, I have it to where we are using the Mazda side so that it can also control the AC. I don't currently have the ability to turn on a fan without using the LS version. So are there any other questions that y'all had about any of the cooling systems? Something that you feel like I didn't cover, or? And this was kind of quick, so I don't know how much y'all had gotten out of that. Let's see. I guess I could start talking about something else. Let's see what else was wanted to be covered. So it looks like somebody wanted to know how to get the AC to work with the factory control. So I could go over that in a bit. What do you do for the stock fuel lines when you fuel pump? You're talking about the dual pump, right, JR? I think you had DM me about that, and I hadn't gotten to you yet about it. So let's see how I did it on here. Honestly, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure I just got rid of them completely. So it looks like I got rid of the those lines completely here. And let's see, let me wrap it around with my electrical cord. So on this one, it looks like I didn't rip it out completely. I still have some, but I need to actually completely rip this out. So this is the feed line, but I guess you can't really see it. It's kind of hard, but this is the feed line. I need to remove it. You can remove the original fuel line completely out of the way after using the big fuel system. So what I did with my fuel lines is I came down the passenger side or the driver's side with the fuel lines, and I went around the body of the car, and then I went up the side of the fender well to go up all the way to the top to be able to do that. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Then it goes straight to a regulator. I guess I could drop it down. Oh, this is one other thing before I go ahead and get out. So one thing that was unintentional with the design of the cooling system was actually this petcock. So with this petcock, you can actually unscrew it right here, and it'll drain straight out of the bottom. So you can put a bucket under it and then go ahead and let all the coolant out without spilling it. So it definitely makes it a lot easier to be able to use. Show you the axles. Let's go look at the axles. Oh man. So here are the axles. Man, to be able to figure out the play would be a big deal. I'd have to pull the wheels off, and I guess I could, but I'll do that after with you, 2J. I'll go ahead and pull the wheels off. We could do that after we're finished with this. I don't think this is going to be a super long stream, but here are the axles that I have. And then they go up to the diff right here. Let's see if I can see it. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's see. See, that's there. And then here, and that's the nose mount. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There isn't a whole lot to the axles. All right, so I was going to show the fuel system real quick for JR. Or, let's see, let me go ahead and set this down. All right, so for the fuel pressure regulator, what I did was I have the feed, I believe is, I can't remember how I did this, but I have the feed or the return. One of them's coming from the bottom, one of them's coming from the side, and then I have the feed to the rail coming from the side here to be able to feed the engine. What mounting? So JR, that's actually a really good question, and actually a very important one. Let me go back up with the car, and we can go over that, because that's something that is actually fairly big with the drive line angle. 2J, actually, I do have to take the wheels off on mine, or I have to unbolt all the outer stubs because I have caps on the wheel that can't come off unless I remove the whole wheel. Yeah, I'd have to unbolt the stub shafts, which would be it would be easier to pull the wheels off and pull the axle nut off. But I can do that in a bit. Let's see. So, and this is the big brakes that I have on the car. It definitely makes a huge difference in stopping power. Oh, and here's a better look at these carbon side skirts. These are actually hydro dipped, and this is how they fit on the car. And pretty neat. I really like how they look and how they bolt on. I just sheet metal screwed it to the car. Let's see. All right. All right. So for JR, here is the transmission crossmember. So as far as mounting the trans, so what I have found to make it to where it's the easiest to mount the transmission is, well, I'm underneath the car, so it definitely makes it a lot easier. So what I ended up doing is I actually bolt the transmission to the crossmember once the engine mounts are bolted in. And I put the engine in the location forward and backward that I would like it to be in. And then from there, I just lift the transmission up into the frame rails to where it sits in here. It is a little tight, so you might have to hit or jack up to push this in on one side or the other. And that's what I would do. I'd actually get it all the way into position, and then I'd use a center punch to go through the hole, and I'd just make a mark with the center punch on all 4 holes, and then drill one hole at a time out to where you can put a bolt in it and put it into place. And then you just repeat that all the way until you're done. As far as the pinion angle for the drive shaft angle, so this is something that's actually really crucial in your type of transmission. Does crossmember go all the way up flush to the body? Yes. So kind of hard to tell, but mine are sitting all the way up against the floorboard. I don't even know if you can see it. Let's see if I can get it into place. It's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to put my laptop in there, but if you don't have 1,000 subscribers, you can't use it on your phone. So yeah, you'll push that all the way up into it, and then you'll be able to put your holes in from there. And as far as checking your drive line, so what you need to do, this depends on several different types of transmissions you use. So we're going to use a U-joint in the front and a U-joint in the back. So my mounting, I haven't checked the current mounting. I can't remember what the pinion angles were, but on the redesigned versions that we're working on, the natural up angle is 3 degrees is where it should be. So with that, that would mean that the back is going up 3 degrees. So you're going to need to check your driveline angle for the drive shaft and also on the pinion. So you need to check your pinion angle and then check your drive shaft angle. And then you need to check also your transmission angle at which it is. So I can't do it on this one, but I can post a link of where you can input these information to be able to get what angle you need to be at. So I don't remember where I am on this. I can go over how we have it on the Nitrous RX-8. It is a little different, but on these, the ideal is that if the transmission is facing downward at 3 degrees, you would want your rear pinion to be facing upward at 3 degrees, going toward the top of the tires, and the transmission facing the down side of the tires. That needs to be staying parallel with the angles to be able to cancel out each U-joint to prevent them from causing noise. However, when you use a CV style front joint, I recently found this out, that the pinion angle actually has to be the same exact angle as your drive shaft itself. So on the RX-8 with the nitrous car, the drive shaft I think is at like 1.8 degrees. So I had to put the pinion at exactly 1.8 degrees or as close to that as possible. Whereas the front of transmission is a whole lot less important when it comes to that, because the CV can constantly be at a different angle, whereas the U-joint has to be the same because it doesn't have two U-joints to oscillate the different vibrations that it can cause. So on this one, to be able to obtain the angle that I needed for this style transmission, I ended up making a spacer to be able to get where I need. So if any of y'all need spacers to be able to do that, I'm more than happy to help make whatever you may need to be able to get your car to the right angles to prevent vibration from occurring. Let's see. I guess I could also show how I did the cooling, the trans-cooling, if any of y'all are using automatic. So this is the 6L80. I'm actually using, I think it's a factory truck cooler line that I cut off right here, and then I put some hard line clamps on it to then go to a 6AN to be able to go to any type of oil cooler I wanted with really nice lines. Let's see. I think a question that I tend to get a lot. Let's see. Thank you. Yeah. I wouldn't worry about the drive line angle until you have the drive shaft installed, because you can't really go by all of that. The drive, each angle, all those three angles are very important to be able to determine where you need to put it, whether the because you can move all of it wherever you need. So it's really important to have the drive shaft first. I think something that tends to come up a lot is the crank sensor distance from the trigger wheel. So this is our truck balancer, and I mean, really, I have about a 1/4 inch gap between it. I mean, really, you just need to make sure that it doesn't get hit by the balancer, because you don't want it to damage your sensor. But so as long as you keep it within a 1/4 inch or 3/16, I mean, it's pretty close to there. I guess I could also go over how I did the power cable on here. So on this one, what I did is I have the main power cable going to the starter, and then I have the alternator wire coming around the front and then going to the alternator up here for the main power wire there. And I also have the LS harness being bolted to the transmission power wire. Let's see. I guess since there's just a couple of you, I could show you this. This is something that we're going to do to the race car. Is I actually found that I can make a twin turbo kit that will be like this. See if I can see where I'm at. So I'll have a turbo on each side of the block. I'll have a mirror set that the exhaust will be dumping straight into it. And then I can either put a wastegate going out straight, or I can come off of the housing itself. And this would be able to still allow to be able to use intake and air filter on the housings, along with plenty enough oil clearance to be able to drain the turbos and feed the oil to the turbo. So I'm pretty excited to be able to use that. That's something I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but that is how it's going to be on the race car that we're going to be building. Let's see if I can find. Clear style. Yes, yeah, it'll definitely clear the steering rod. Yeah, so I've actually already kind of half-assed put it in, and yeah, the turbo setup being able to be put right there would be really awesome, because the only part that's bad about it is that you can't really see it. I mean, once you get up here in the car, the alternator is going to have to go at the top over here in the corner, and then an AC compressor over there. So you'll still be able to utilize all the same parts that you actually use with the kit that we have, because that's my biggest thing, is making power without having to change all the stuff that I've already designed. Because like, people buy this stuff and then they have the car and now they got to rechange all the stuff that they already bought. I find that really really annoying to be able to do that. So that's kind of why I've decided to do that. And I also really like the position. I think the turbos that I've found could support up to around 1,600 wheel horsepower, which, I mean, you wouldn't have to get those turbos, but you could definitely get a smaller pair that would still make a lot of power with as little lag as possible. It still is going to have plenty of room for intercooler piping and everything like that. So I'm really excited about that. Trying to think of what else there is to talk about. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to go grab something and come back over here to try to explain the AC real quick. All right, so I'm back. All right. So for the AC wires, so this connects straight to the fuse box, and I believe, actually, I'm gonna have to go look on the diagram real quick. I don't actually remember which wires is which. Did you show? Nope. All right, so somebody asked, did I show how the radiator is mounted and how it sits? Yeah, you missed that. I can go back to that. Brandon, yeah, I'm much as I do some of this for the money, I also do it because I enjoy doing it. That's why I have 2 of these cars. I do really love these cars, and I don't want to have to change my parts either. Let's see if I can go. Yeah, 2J, I'll raise the car back up so that you can see the mounting and how it's done. Kind of hard to tell in this car, though. Okay. Let's see. We go over here. I think it's these 2 wires. No, I don't know. Let me see. 2011. All right, AC right here. AC compressor is where? I think actually you only need 1 of these wires, actually, now that I think about it. Ambient temperature sensor. There it is. Yeah, so it's actually gray and blue. So it's actually this gray and blue wire, which kind of forget about the wire colors, because it's going to change based on what year car you have. So best way to think about it is this is the starter control solenoid, and then the one directly under it would be your power that would turn your AC compressor on. So you can case ground the wire to the block or the AC compressor, and then just use this to power and activate the compressor. And then as far as the, you will have to plug the factory AC pressure sensor back into the AC line in order for it to all turn on like it should. Let's see, so Brennan, how do they hook up in and out? Brandon, you're talking about how all the hoses and stuff connect? Tank hoses. Yeah, I can show all that. And harness for sale. JR, I don't know how long it's going to be before the harness is available. I've been working on the harness every day since Monday to try to get everything working. I've got everything working. Now I have to be able to sort out where all the pins come from, where they go, and how many wires can be eliminated, and just completely go over everything and make sure that they all work. Also be able to figure out where I'm going to put the modules. It appears that the trunk is going to be the best location to be able to put them in. But that's a lot of wire to be able to put some of them in the trunk, but I mean, it's just going to have to be how it is. So really, I'm really focused on how easy can I make it to install. Yeah, cleaning up the bay, and it'll remove all of this wiring that's annoying. Like, I mean, this isn't difficult, and to be able to make the factory wiring work, it never really looks all that great. It still looks like a wiring nightmare because of these large ass harnesses that are going through the engine bay. It would look so much better if all those wires were out of the way, and I think it would scare a whole lot less people to be able to do the swap. All right, so we're going to go over the radiators setup again. So this is the radiator mount. I'm going to see if I can see where it is. So it's bolted to some factory holes. I do not have this bolt in right now. I actually have it lowered. I haven't completely gotten this because this is lowered a little for the the turbos, and that's on both sides. They bolt into place. How you know you have it right is the arms are facing that direction, and the large gussets are going toward the back. Now, as far as the heater hoses, the radiator hoses, we have this upper radiator, the lower radiator hose that comes down along the side of the radiator, and then it goes to the bottom hole. This is a block off for an additional line that you could have if you needed more cooling capacity. You could use this if you want. You just have to pull that off and utilize that for your input, and you'd have to likely use the heater core line to be able to tee off, to be able to go and complete your circuit for the heater hose. And then that's really actually all that is down here for all those hoses. Now I'll have to go back to the bottom to be able to show the top. All right, so for the top, I have the upper radiator hose. Now this is for the 5th gen Camaro accessories, which is truck offset. And so this is the upper radiator hose. I'm gonna try to be able to see it. So it goes from here, from the upper radiator hose spot, it goes along the side and then goes into the upper outlet. And then for the heater hoses, I have, this is one heater hose, so that tees up, goes to your coolant reservoir. So you're trying to show more of the car and not the see, I'm trying to figure out where it goes. Okay, so the bigger hose goes to the front with the 3/4 inch hose. The tees off goes to your expansion tank, and then it breaks down to a 1/2 inch hose that goes to your heater hose, which is kind of hard to see on here. And then the front one is 5/8 that also goes down to a 1/2 inch hose and goes to the heater core as well. This is the steam port line, comes from the top of the reservoir to a T. This is a 3/8 or a 10 millimeter, 6 millimeter. And this part goes to the steam port on the engine, and this part goes to the upper radiator to be able to keep all the air out of it. And this is the steam port line. In order to fill this up, you're going to want to unscrew this, pull this off, go ahead and fill your reservoir up until all the air is out of your steam port line. And then you know you have gotten all the air out of your cooling system. At least that's how I've always done it. And let's see. I have not used a wiper fluid bottle, so I do not have one at all. It hasn't really been a huge thing for me. That's why I don't have one. Although I feel like you could put a washer fluid bottle anywhere. You would have to use an aftermarket one. It definitely can. I do not believe that it can fit with that coolant expansion tank right there. So that was just something that I sacrificed, and I would have to go to a different one, I believe. I've never even tried to install it there. So you could always put one in the front. I mean, it's just a hose and 2 wires to be able to run it to the front. I could actually try at a later date and see if a coolant tank will fit there. I don't even know if I have one, actually. Soda bottle for it. Soda bottle for inspections and taking it out. I don't. Whenever you talking about like state inspections? I was a state inspector for Louisiana, actually, and that was actually not part of the safety inspection whenever I was doing them, which is kind of funny, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you can have all kinds of stuff wrong with the car, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's another option. Like 2J said, I bought a much smaller washer fluid with pump off of Amazon for $30. So, I mean, you could always add something else, but yeah, I don't know. I can play with that, and I do need to figure that out before I go and finish this wiring, because I may as well get wiring to the washer spot for sure. It's always really important to me to not take up too much space in certain places, because I'd like people to be able to utilize that. That's funny. In Pencil, so I'll have to double check, but Pennsylvania, I think you need working wipers, which includes fluid. I wonder if they actually test the squirters when you go into the station. I know your wipers are supposed to work. I just never remember anybody saying anything about the squirters themselves. But I mean, I guess I could definitely figure out what bottle would work to be able to make it fit behind that washer bottle. I mean, the behind the coolant bottle. Let's see. I think somebody else has. Let's see what other questions they had in here. So somebody said exhaust, fuel system. I guess I could just go over. Let's see. I guess I could go over engine choices. I think that's actually a really important thing. I could do that for a little while. So engine choices is a really complicated thing to look at, though, because it's all based on, in my opinion, price per power you get. So I would always be looking at really the most reliable location to be able to get a known good motor. A a perfect example is actually this car right here. This is the third engine that's been put in this just since I twin turboed it, which was really annoying that I put two motors in this car and still had both of them knocking. And this is I got it from LKQ, and thankfully, I mean, we have a shop and a relationship with our local LKQ, so it really did make it a lot easier for them to know that that's what was happening. But I was really starting to wonder if it was something that I was doing on my end, because I mean, I put it in there and I mean, it started rod knocking. I didn't even run it for 5 minutes and it's already causing problems. And like, this is a 2008 motor that's supposed to be good. And, with the one that we actually went to Texas 2K with was actually knocking. That was the second of the three motors. I didn't get the third motor in time to even bring it. I was revving it and stuff while we were there because, I mean, that's what it was there for, is to be able to be displayed, which you couldn't really hear it while we were there. It was mostly underneath the car. And it was still fairly light. But what's funny is I checked the oil pressure, and I actually had almost 60 pounds of oil pressure at idle, which is really odd. But as far as engine choices, I'm always the kind of person that would want the newest available motor that I can get within reason. All the motors really can make a lot of power. I mean, you can use the 5.3, the 4.8, the 5.7, the 6 liter, or the 6.2. The LS7, like Marcus said, it's definitely, the LS7's a lot of money, but you can make a lot of power with the LS7. I mean, they make like 650 wheel horsepower using the LS7, which you could never get that out of. I don't think you can get that out of unless you have a 427. I mean, you go start doing a stroker kit and stuff. I mean, you can definitely get to that range, but I'm actually really kind of digging the LT motor, which I have right here, which I plan on putting in a car. So this is an L83. Actually, let me get this box down. And I had actually bolted our LS headers on the block just to see how the fitment would work, to see if I could easily convert the LS headers to the LT motor. So I actually need to put the motor in the car to see what kind of tweaks I have to do to be able to use the LT. But these LTs, from what I've been reading, they make a lot of power. I mean, for their size, because of their compression ratio, is one of the many things about them. But the LT, like, I was looking, that motor can make like almost 500 crank horsepower with just a cam and an intake. Out of a 5.3. Well, no, I think it actually made 480 with the biggest cam. But I mean, you're talking a 5.3. I mean, that's some really big power. I mean, our 6 liter LQ4 only makes probably about 480 at the crank. I mean, it makes 405 to the tire. So I mean, that pumping out of an aluminum 5.3 would be actually a much better choice, in my opinion, based on the power. The biggest downfall of the LT motors, though, is their injectors. It's very expensive to be able to use the LT injectors. So what I was actually planning to do is like running a Holley, and then actually utilizing, they have a port injected intake that you can get, and you just run regular injectors on it, and then you don't have that restriction of the direct injection anymore. So you just block off the direct injection ports on it. And yeah, that's kind of how I felt about that one. I haven't done one personally, but I mean, putting headers on it and a cam would be definitely an ideal, and they're actually quite cheap in comparison to the LSs, because there's so many of them, whereas there's so few people needing them and wanting them. So as far as the biggest thing whenever picking an engine is always remembering that you need the accessories, because if you have to go buy the F-body oil pan, the pickup tube, the windage tray, and the dipstick, like, I mean, that's going to set you back like $350, $400. And then you also have to get an intake if you're using a truck motor. You have to get accessories if you're going to get a truck motor. So you're going to still need a water pump, tensioner, idler, alternator bracket. So, I mean, you always have to kind of put that into calculation whenever you're picking an engine, because the LS1, the true LS1 could actually be a cheaper option, or even the true LS3, depending on what you're looking at. So accessories can definitely be a spot where a lot of money is tied up and put when you don't actually intend on putting that money there. So, and the accessories, you can use all three different offsets: the Corvette, which is the lowest profile, the F body, which is the middle of the two, and then the truck. All three can be utilized. I don't particularly love the truck offset like I have in this turbo car, but it's the only thing that really made sense because of all of what I already had, and because I think my exhaust manifold actually wouldn't fit with the Camaro style alternator bracket, which was definitely a really big must. I had to put the alternator on it, and I already had the bracket for the truck offset. So that was another huge factor. I was actually intending on putting the F-body stuff on it. I even bought some stuff to be able to utilize that. Let's see. And then somebody asked about the fuel system. So I can go ahead and go over the fuel system as well, unless somebody had some other questions about engine choices. So for the fuel system, we use a drop-in 340 liter per hour pump, which you're going to put that in, same deadhead system to where it's a single fuel line that goes to your fuel rail. And then from your fuel rail, you can use the factory fuel rail all the way up to the engine, and then you're just going to tie in from the factory fuel line straight to your fuel rail onto your LS motor. I think the factory fuel pressure regulator is around 48 PSI, which is still doable, but the programmer does have to, that's tuning your engine, does have to know that you are running lower fuel pressure than typical, because they're going to have to add more pulse width to your injectors than they normally would on an LS car, because they're more like 55 and up. And that system will utilize, and it'll make 500 wheel horsepower is kind of pushing how to the tires, how much that deadhead system's kind of peaking out at. And then that's where we go to the single and dual fuel pump setups. So I have a single fuel pump system in this. I'm going to be adding a dual soon, but the nitrous car has the single pump as well. The reason for it is the factory fuel pump can't make safely over 500 wheel horsepower, and the car makes 550 wheel or 540 wheel horsepower. So that is why we ended up putting the single fuel pump, the single 450 in that one, and that'll get us to where we should be able to make right at about 650 wheel horsepower with that. And that's because we're using nitrous on the car, and we're coming off of the fuel line to be able to utilize that. And whenever you're going with the single fuel pump, you do have to have a fuel pressure regulator that's aftermarket. I would recommend doing it similar to this. You don't have to do it that way. It doesn't matter to me. But I have a 6AN feed and a 6AN return. If you're using the dual fuel pumps, we use dual 6AN feed and a single 6AN return. I have had people that have wanted to increase that return size, but the reason why I do not is because the Radium Engineer jet pump is actually only a 3/8 hose, which is the same size as 6AN fuel line. So no matter how big of a hose that you go to your return, you still have to flow through a 3/8 hole. So you really can't utilize any more than that. And the same goes for the fuel pump feeds. I've had people want me to go to dual 8AN feeds, and they wanted to be able to split off to a 10, but I have never found that to. It's hard for me to fathom that you would need that. One, because I've already utilized making a 1,000 wheel horsepower on E85, using the dual 6 feed and 6AN return, and I never had any issues, which is why I don't think it's a big deal. And also the fuel pump outlets on the 450s are only 3/8 hose again, so you still can't outflow the pumps no matter how big of a line you go afterward. So Brandon asked, what aftermarket intakes will fit under the hood, like as far as sheet metal intakes, like Holley Sniper. So as far as the intakes, I haven't done it yet, but I think I want to make a separate section of the website where those who purchase parts from our website will get access to. It'll have a full, complete, known compatible list of parts and where you can buy them from. So the intake will be part of that. When it comes to the aftermarket sheet metal intakes, I had the only sheet metal intake that I've personally used was the low profile for like a Camaro, and it had the nose that rotated downward at probably 20 degrees. I think that you can use the one that is straight, but I prefer the look and the fitment of the one that goes down. So that's the one that I would recommend, is the lowest profile that you can get and the one that rotates the nose down some. You definitely can't use one. You cannot use the mid-level one. You definitely have to use the low profile sheet metal intake. And JR, what are the best places to mount your fuel pressure regulator in a manual car? Master would be in the way where it is on the blue car. That's a really good question. I don't actually know. Let me look. I don't know if I have a master cylinder in here. It would definitely be a really close call. Let me go look at the nitrous car actually and see, because I'm kind of curious about that too. I can get a tape measure real quick in the keys. Let's see where tape measures. Let's see where I hit the tape measure to. Okay. Let's see. All right, I'm not sure where I put a tape measure, so I'm going to have to try to use something else. But I have those items. So, like on this, let's see, can you see it? I can't remember. Let's see, we're stopped about right here at that line. Let's see, I'm lagging a lot. I don't think I have good internet. Did y'all get to see that at all? Probably not. Well, after looking at it, if you didn't, I can take some pictures and measurements. But I really don't know if you'd be able to do that. It would definitely be really close. I do have on mine, this is a fuel pressure sensor on mine that I added. So I'm not sure. I know without the fuel pressure sensor, it would have a really good chance of being able to be able to fit, but that can be moved over if you needed it to. So I think it could still work. It would just, you likely would have to move it some. You might could put it on the firewall instead, but I haven't really played with much. But I would still definitely go through that hole right there personally. Or actually, I put it there every time. So I'm not sure. I think it could work. I mean, that is a fairly small pressure regulator. It's not really big. So I think it would probably still be able to fit. This is the smaller Aeromotive regulator, but I think that's it for tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and head out. I got some stuff that I got to take care of. If y'all have any other questions, go ahead and hit me up or post it on the page, and I'll try to get to it. And I will again ask what if there's anything that anybody else would like to hear or know about, or something that they're struggling on. I'll be more than happy to try to go ahead and take care of any of the questions that those are. So until then, I will see y'all later. Let's see how I stop this. How do I close this live? Axel, yeah, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you too, Jay. Trying to figure out how to freaking turn the live off. Edit this. I don't even remember how I did it. Send feedback. Access to this feature. Shit, how do you get off of this?